Chapter 1. The Unseen Ocean. Why your deepest longing is a wave in a dark sea. Have you ever had a feeling that sits behind your ribs, not quite a pain, not quite an emptiness, but a pull? A longing for something you can't quite name, a better job, a different love, a quieter place, a more exciting life. You try to fill it with achievements, with comforts, with the light of a screen in the dark. And for a moment, it works. The feeling retreats. But then, in the quiet, it returns. It always returns. What if I told you that feeling isn't a flaw in you? It isn't a mistake to be corrected. That ache is the very engine of the universe. And to know it is to finally understand the weight you have been carrying all your life. Close your eyes now and don't think of an ocean. Don't picture the crashing waves, the white foam, the sun glittering on the surface. No. I want you to imagine the deep, the abyssal plain, a place of perfect, crushing blackness, a cold, silent, and boundless water that stretches in every direction, forever. There is no light here, no life as we know it, just a vast, eternal, and blind pressure. This is what Schopenhauer called the will. It is not a thinking, planning God. It is not a rational mind. It is a raw, unconscious, and desperate striving, a hunger with no object, a force that wants simply for the sake of wanting. And you are not separate from this ocean. The ache you feel behind your ribs, the longing for a forgotten name on the tip of your tongue, the restless energy that makes you check your phone one more time, the sudden thirst in the middle of the night. These are not your problems alone. They are tiny, temporary waves on the surface of that infinite dark sea. You are a wave. You rose up from the deep, took a form, a shape for a brief moment. You have a name, a history, a face you see in the mirror. But underneath, you are made of the same substance as the endless depth. Your wanting is the ocean's wanting. Your striving is its striving. Schopenhauer looked at the world, at the vine strangling the tree to reach the sun, at the predator stalking its prey, at the human heart scheming for love and power. And he did not see a universe of logic. He saw a universe of want, a single tormented force expressing itself in a billion different ways. We are all just characters in a dream this hungry ocean is having. And we think our wants are our own. We think, if I could just get that promotion, win that affection, buy that house on the quiet street, then the wave I am could finally be still. But the ocean does not allow for stillness. The moment one want is satisfied, the ocean murmurs another into being. Boredom sets in. A new longing emerges. The pursuit begins again. This is why life, he said, is a pendulum that swings between pain and boredom. Pain when we are in a state of want, striving for the wave to crest. And boredom, the strange emptiness, the hollow quiet, the moment after the wave has crashed and we are waiting, suspended, for the next want to form. We spend our lives running from one to the other, believing the next swing will be the one that finally brings rest. But the pendulum is attached to the ocean floor. It will never stop swinging. It sounds bleak, doesn't it? To be a prisoner of a force you didn't choose. To be a craving in a universe of craving. But there is a profound and strange comfort in this. That ache you carry. It is not a sign that you are broken. It is a sign that you are part of something immense. The loneliness you feel when you lie awake at night is not because you are alone, but because you are connected to the deepest current of existence itself, a current that is, by its very nature, a lonely, seeking thing. Your personal sorrow is the world's sorrow. Your tiny want is a note in a symphony of infinite desire. You can stop fighting it now. You can stop believing you alone are failing to find happiness. You are not failing. You are feeling the fundamental pulse of everything. The wave is not meant to still the ocean. It is only meant to be for a little while a beautiful, fleeting expression of it. And in knowing that, in truly feeling it in your bones, the first small crack of peace appears. The wave, for just a moment, understands it as water, and the longing becomes a little quieter. And so we leave the dark, pressing depth of that endless ocean, and we rise slowly toward the light. But the light itself, the world we see and touch and believe to be so solid, so real, what if it too is not what it seems? What if the world is a story we are telling ourselves, a veil woven from the threads of our own wanting? If the will is the ocean, then the world we live in is the shimmering, distorted reflection on its surface, a beautiful, painful illusion. And to see the loom upon which that veil is woven is to take the first step toward true awakening. Let's turn down this next corridor, where the shadows play tricks on the walls and nothing is quite as solid as it seems. Chapter 2. The Silent Veil. How the world you see is a dream you can't wake from. Look at your hands, the lines on your palms, the way the knuckles bend, the faint texture of skin under the soft light. It feels so real, so unquestionably there. This is the world. The screen you hold, the weight of the blanket, the sound of a distant car humming like a tired insect. It is all just reality. We never doubt it. But what if this reality is not a picture of how the world is, but a picture of how you are? A translation, a projection, a dream from which there is no alarm clock. Schopenhauer, building on the beautiful, cold architecture of Immanuel Kant, asked a simple, devastating question. How do we know the world? We know it through our senses, through sight, sound, touch, taste, smell. These are not clear windows. They are filters. They are translators. Your eyes do not see the full spectrum of light, only a tiny sliver. Your ears hear only a certain range of vibrations. A dog hears a whistle you cannot. A bee sees ultraviolet patterns on a flower that are invisible to you. So whose world is the real one? Yours? The dog's? The bee's? The world you experience, what we call reality, is not the world in itself. It is your representation of it. It is a virtual reality headset built by your brain, fed data by your limited senses. Space and time, the very stage upon which your life plays out, are not things out there. They are the very operating system of your mind. You cannot think without them. They are the loom on which the veil is woven. You see a mountain as a large, distant object because your mind is programmed to process things in space. You feel anxiety about a meeting tomorrow because your mind is programmed to process things in time. But what is the mountain outside of space? What is the meeting outside of time? We cannot even conceive of it. Our minds are not built to. We are trapped inside the projector booth, watching the movie of our lives, and we have mistaken the flickering light for the real world. This is the veil of Maya, an idea Schopenhauer borrowed from ancient Indian philosophy. The world is illusion, not because it doesn't exist, but because it does not exist in the way we think it does. It is a phenomenal world, a world of appearances. The real world, the world of the will, the dark ocean, is the noumenal world, the world as it truly is behind the veil. And we can never lift the veil. We can only ever see the shadow puppets it casts. This is why we misunderstand each other so completely. You see a person's actions, the sharp word, the dismissive glance, the closed door, and you interpret it through your own loom, your own veil. You weave a story of their intentions, their malice, their indifference, but you are not seeing their will, the dark ocean of striving inside them. You are only seeing their representation, their shadow puppet, and they are seeing yours. We are all lonely projectionists in separate booths, guessing at the meaning of the shadows we see from other rooms. There is a deep loneliness in this, but also a profound call to mercy. When you feel hurt by someone, offended, angered, can you pause? Can you remember that you are not reacting to the world as it is, but to your idea of the world? You are reacting to a shadow. The person who caused the pain is also trapped in their own booth, acting out the desperate urges of the will inside them, a will they themselves do not understand. They are not a villain in your story. They are a fellow dreamer, lost in their own painful nightmare. This doesn't excuse cruelty, but it reframes it. It becomes a tragedy instead of a personal attack. The pain is real. The shadow is solid enough to bruise you, but its source is a universal misunderstanding. We are all sleepwalkers, bumping into each other in the same dark room, each convinced we are awake and the other is at fault. And in that realization, the tight fist of your anger might just loosen. The story you've been telling yourself about your life becomes a little softer, a little less absolute. The veil is still there. You cannot tear it down, but you can learn to see its weave. And in seeing it, you stop mistaking the embroidery for the truth. And so we find ourselves adrift in a beautiful, painful dream. We are waves on a wanting ocean, living in a world of our own projection, striving, always striving, in a story we didn't write. Is there no way out? Must we just swing on the pendulum between pain and boredom until the end? What if there was a way to quiet the ocean? Not to still another wave, but to calm the water itself. It is the most difficult path. It is not a path of gaining, but of letting go. It is not about fulfilling the will, but about denying it. It is a whisper of freedom so radical, so quiet, it sounds like silence. Let's blow out the last candle and listen for it. Chapter 3. The Final Denial. The Forbidden Art of Quieting the Endless Want. We have sailed the dark ocean of the will. We have studied the shimmering veil of Maya, that illusion we call our world. And we have felt the exhausting rhythm of the pendulum. So now, we arrive at the quietest, most personal question. If this is the nature of existence, a constant, tormented striving in a world of our own illusion, is there any escape? Any peace? Or are we simply prisoners in a beautifully furnished cell? Schopenhauer, the great pessimist, surprisingly offers a key. But it is not a key that unlocks a door to a brighter world. It is a key that unlocks the chains we did not know we were wearing. The escape is not outward, but inward, not through possession, but through negation. The end of suffering is not the satisfaction of desire, but the end of desire itself. This is the ultimate forbidden art, the quieting of the want. How does one do this? How does a wave tell the ocean to be still? It feels impossible, because our every instinct, our every thought, our very identity is tied to the will. To want is to be alive. To deny the will feels like a kind of suicide, and in a way it is. The suicide of the ego, the small self that believes it is only a wave. Schopenhauer pointed to two paths that can lead us to this quiet shore, if only for a moment. The first is through art. When you are completely absorbed in a piece of music, so much so that you forget yourself. When you stand before a vast painting and feel your personal worries shrink into nothingness. When you read a line of poetry that seems to articulate a truth you felt, but never knew you felt. In these moments, you achieve what Schopenhauer called a state of will-less perception. You are no longer the striving individual, desperate to change the world to suit your wants. You have become a pure, clear mirror, reflecting the world as it is. You are not using the mountain for your hike or the sunset for your Instagram photo. You are simply seeing it. In that pure, disinterested contemplation, the pendulum stops. The want is silenced. You are free. This is why beauty can feel so heartbreaking. It is a fleeting glimpse of a freedom we instinctively crave, a freedom from ourselves. Art is a temporary redemption from the tyranny of the will. But art is only a temporary respite. The music ends. You leave the museum. The want returns. The second path is more permanent, more radical, and far more difficult. It is the path of asceticism, of utter self-denial. This is not the modern idea of a detox or a productivity hack. This is a complete and total turning away from the urges of the will. It is refusing to participate in the game. It is chastity, poverty, fasting, humility, not because they are virtues to be collected, but because they are ways to systematically starve the want. It is the person who, when the will demands pleasure, says, no. When it demands recognition, says, no. When it demands more, says, no. It is a gradual, painful unraveling of the self. The ultimate end of this path is a state Schopenhauer found in the teachings of Eastern philosophies. Nirvana, the blowing out of the flame, not annihilation, but the end of the burning, desperate fuel of the will. It is a state of perfect peace. The ocean becomes still. The dreamer, at last, wakes up. For most of us, this ultimate denial is not a practical path. We are too woven into the world of want. But we can practice small denials. We can sit in a quiet room and, when the want whispers, pick up the phone, seek distraction, do something. We can simply not. We can observe the want as it rises, see it as a wave from that foreign ocean, and let it pass without obeying it. In that tiny, almost imperceptible act of resistance, we taste a fragment of freedom. We realize we are not the want. We are the one who watches the want. And that is a revelation that changes everything. What is lost if we ignore this? We lose the chance for true peace. We remain forever on the pendulum, chasing satisfaction we will never catch, mistaking the shadow on the veil for something real, and wondering, always wondering, why happiness feels so fleeting. We die as we lived, a wave that never knew it was water. But what is gained if we even partially embrace it? We gain moments of profound clarity. We gain mercy for ourselves and others, seeing us all as fellow sufferers in the same dream. We gain the ability to appreciate beauty, not as a possession, but as a sacred glimpse behind the curtain. We loosen the grip of the want, just a little, and in that loosening, we find a space, a silence, a peace that does not depend on the world outside, because it never did. It was always here, underneath the wanting, waiting for the storm to calm. The world will continue to strive. The ocean will continue to heave. But you, in the quiet of your own heart, can learn to be the still point. You can learn the art of denial, the art of seeing, the art of letting the want rise and fall without you. And in that art, you find the deepest education of all, that you were never the wave. You were the vast, silent, and peaceful depth all along. Now, just listen to the silence after these words fade. That silence is not an emptiness. It is the ocean finally, at rest. Let it carry you now. Let it carry you into the deepest, most peaceful sleep. The story is over. The truth remains. Chapter 4. The Unwanted Key. You've been carrying all along. What if the ache you feel at the end of a long day, the subtle hum of dissatisfaction even when everything is fine, is not a flaw in you, but a flaw in the world? What if your exhaustion is not a sign that you have failed at life, but that you have, in fact, been listening to its most basic instruction, an instruction that is designed to never, ever let you rest? There is a door you've been trying to open your whole life, pushing against it with all your might, believing that on the other side lies peace. But tonight, what if I told you that the key you've been using is the very thing that locked the door in the first place, and that the key has been in your pocket all this time, heavy and cold, waiting to be recognized for what it is, and gently let go? Imagine for a moment the world not as a collection of separate things, this chair, that window, the sound of the wind, but as a single, pulsing, driving force. Schopenhauer called this force the will. It is not a personal will, not your will or my will. It is a blind, aimless, ceaseless striving that is the very engine of reality. It is the force that pushes the root through the crack in the concrete, desperate for water and sun. It is the instinct that drives the predator to hunt and the prey to flee. It is the deep biological imperative that courses through our veins, the wanting, the endless, endless wanting. This will, this primordial desire, uses us as its instruments. It creates an intellect, a consciousness, what we think of as us, not to find truth or peace, but to better serve its own purposes. Think of your mind not as a master in its own house, but as a brilliant, anxious advisor to a blind and hungry king. The king knows only one command: want, acquire, want again. And your mind, your consciousness, is employed to devise ever more clever ways to satisfy him, to find food, to seek companionship, to build shelters, to achieve status, to secure comfort. We spend our lives in this service, believing that if we can just secure the next thing, fulfill the next desire, the king will finally be satisfied, and we will be allowed to rest. But the king is blind, and his hunger is infinite. He is never satisfied. You achieve the goal you worked for, and for a moment, there is a flicker of relief. Perhaps you feel it when you finally sit down after a long day, or when you receive that piece of good news you've been waiting for. But watch that feeling closely. See how quickly it fades. See how, almost immediately, a new unease settles in. The relief itself becomes boring. A new want emerges. A new lack is felt. The advisor, your mind, is immediately put back to work. Schopenhauer saw this cycle with terrifying clarity. Life swings like a pendulum between the pain of lack and the boredom of satisfaction. We are either aching for something, or we are yawning from the emptiness of having it. There is no third state. Or is there? This is the key in your pocket. The key is this understanding that the constant hum of want, the background radiation of your anxiety, is not yours. It is not a personal failing. It is the vibration of the universe itself, playing its eternal tune through the instrument of your body and mind. You are not broken for feeling that the finish line never brings the peace you thought it would. You are simply hearing the music correctly for the first time. The exhaustion you feel at the end of the day is the exhaustion of the advisor who has been tirelessly, frantically serving a master who cannot be pleased. And tonight, just for now, you can lay that burden down. You can, just for a moment, stop identifying with the wanting. You can listen to the want arise, for the day to have been different, for sleep to come faster, for a problem to be solved, and instead of jumping to obey it, you can simply acknowledge it. Ah, there it is, the voice of the king. It does not need to be my voice. I can just watch it. And in that space, that tiny, almost imperceptible gap between the want and the identification with it, there is a whisper of something else, a silence that was always there, underneath the noise of the world. A first fragile breath of freedom. The night deepens around us, and the first lantern has burned low, its light absorbed by the quiet dark. Its flame showed us the nature of the lock. But a question lingers in the stillness it left behind. If the key is to stop turning the lock, to stop feeding the endless want, what happens to the world? Does it fade to gray? Or does it perhaps become more real, more vivid, more beautiful than we ever could have imagined, while we were so busy wanting it? There is another way to see, a way that turns the world into art and our pain into a portrait we can observe, but no longer need to live inside. Chapter 5. The Sacred Art of Stepping Back from the Painting. Have you ever been so completely lost in a piece of music that you forgot you were listening? Where the boundary between you and the sound dissolved, and for a few minutes there was no you. There was only the swell of the strings, the H of the melody. Or have you ever looked at a landscape, a mountain range under a vast sky, or the intricate pattern of rain on a window pane, and for a fleeting second, your personal worries, your name, your history, simply vanished? You became a pure, silent witness. In that moment, you were not a person with problems and desires. You were a window through which the universe was observing itself. And in that moment, there was a profound, absolute peace. This was not an escape from reality, Schopenhauer would whisper. It was, for the first time, an arrival into it. He called this state the transition from being a willing subject to a pure, will-less subject of knowledge. It is the temporary dismissal of the blind king. The advisor, your intellect, is finally freed from its dreadful duty of plotting and planning to satisfy an endless hunger. And what is it free to do? It is free to perceive, to know, to see things as they are in themselves, not as they are for you, not as potential objects of use or obstacles or tools for your desires. When you look at a tree without the filter of want, something miraculous happens. You are no longer seeing a tree as a concept. You are not thinking about its shade or its lumber or how it compares to other trees. You are perceiving its essence, the intricate weave of its bark, the impossible green of its leaves against the blue sky, the quiet, ancient dignity of its presence. You are seeing the idea of the tree, as Plato might have said, the timeless essence of treeness that it embodies. This is the heart of aesthetic experience, of art and beauty. The artist is someone who has, however briefly, quieted the will within them and perceived the world in this pure, will-less way. And then, through their genius, they create an object, a painting, a symphony, a poem, that acts as a window for the rest of us. It gives us a ladder to climb out of the prison of our own willing. When you lose yourself in a great novel, You are not you for a few hours. You are not your bills, your responsibilities, your anxieties. You are living another life, feeling another's feelings, seeing through another's eyes. The constant grinding pressure of your own personal will is suspended. And in that suspension, there is relief. There is peace. This is the sacred art of stepping back from the painting of your life. Your life is a canvas, thick with the frantic, desperate brushstrokes of your wants and fears. It can look like a mess, a chaotic swirl of pressure and need. But Schopenhauer invites you to do something radical. He invites you to take a single step backwards, to create a tiny space between you and the canvas. And from this new vantage point, you can begin to see the patterns. You can see how the dark strokes of pain contrast with the lighter hues of joy, how the composition of your life has a certain tragic beauty to it. It is no longer just your suffering. It is a suffering, a human suffering, part of the grand and terrible tapestry of existence. You are no longer just the painter, frantically adding more paint. You are also the observer, appreciating the painting for what it is. This doesn't erase the pain, but it transmutes it. It turns personal agony into impersonal tragedy, and there is a strange, deep comfort in that. Your story becomes a story. And a story, no matter how sad, can be beautiful. It can be understood. It can be held. And in the holding, it loses its power to crush you. So tonight, as you lie here in the dark, practice stepping back from the canvas. Notice a want arise. The desire for sleep, the memory of a worry. Instead of diving into it, simply observe it. See it as a brushstroke on the painting. It is there. It has a color, a texture. It is part of the whole. But you are the vast, quiet space in which the painting hangs. The painting is finite. The space is infinite, and you are that space. And so we arrive at the final lantern, its light the softest and most steady of all. We have seen the lock, and we have learned to stop turning the key. We have learned to step back and behold the painting of our lives with a quiet, artistic eye. But what of the deepest desire? The desire for the self, for the ego, to finally be at peace. What happens when we stop serving the king, not just for a moment, but for good? The answer is not an ending, but a merging. A return to a silence so profound, it was the very source of the noise all along. Chapter 6. The Ocean Refusing the Wave. What does the wave do when it realizes it is water? All its life it has struggled. It has risen high, believing itself to be unique, powerful, separate from the other waves. It has crashed against the shore in a fury of individual expression, only to recede, exhausted. It has feared the trough, the low point, seeing it as a failure, and coveted the crest, seeing it as success. It has lived a life of frantic striving, of perpetual motion, of identity defined by its temporary form. But what happens in the moment it understands, the moment it knows, in the very core of its being, that its substance is not its form, that its true nature is the vast, deep, silent ocean from which it arose and to which it will return? The struggle ceases. The fear of crashing ends. The anxiety of receding vanishes. For it knows it was never just the wave. It is, and always has been, the ocean. This was Schopenhauer's ultimate peace, the denial of the will to live. He does not mean a physical suicide. That to him was not a denial of the will, but a violent and tragic affirmation of it, a final desperate act of a will that could not bear its own suffering. No, The denial he speaks of is an inner one. It is a quiet, profound, and total resignation. It is the final laying down of the burden. It is the advisor turning to the blind king and, with infinite compassion and finality, saying, "I will no longer serve." This resignation is not born of despair, though it may pass through it. It is born of knowledge, of seeing the mechanism of will so clearly, so unmistakably, that one simply ceases to participate in it. It is the realization that every desire, even the desire for happiness itself, is a link in a chain that binds us to suffering. To deny the will is to willingly let go of the chain. It is to look at all the objects of the world, wealth, fame, pleasure, even personal relationships, and to see them for what they are, bait for the trap, and to simply, gently say, "No, thank you." What remains when the constant buzzing want of the individual self is quieted? What is left in that immense silence? Schopenhauer points to the experiences of saints and ascetics across cultures, those who have reported a state of blissful nothingness, of nirvana, of union with the divine. It is not a state of joy, for joy is merely the temporary satisfaction of a wish. It is something far deeper, far more stable. It is peace. It is the peace of the ocean, which contains all waves but is not disturbed by them. It is the peace of the sky, through which all weather passes, but which remains eternally untouched. For us, in our lives, this ultimate denial may feel like a distant shore, but we can feel its breeze. We can taste its salt on the air. We feel it in those rare moments of complete and total acceptance, when a long-feared outcome finally arrives, and instead of fighting it, you simply open your hands and say, "It is here. I will bear it." In that moment, the will to resist evaporates. The struggle stops, and what floods in is not nothingness, but a profound, quiet, and awe-inspiring sense of connection to the whole of existence. You are no longer a wave fighting the ocean. You are the ocean, experiencing itself as a wave. The pain may still be present, but it is no longer personal. It is simply a phenomenon, like the weather, and you are the vast space that holds it. So as you drift now, on the edge of sleep, where the boundaries of self become soft and permeable, practice this gentle resignation. Feel your individual desires, your sense of me and mine, beginning to soften. Feel yourself not as a separate entity lying in a bed, but as a consciousness and awareness that is part of the room, part of the night, part of the quiet hum of the world. The will to be a separate self is loosening its grip. You are returning. You are the wave, finally remembering it is water. You are the listener, finally becoming the silence between the words. You are the candle flame, not afraid to be extinguished, because it knows it is also the darkness, and the hand that lit it, and the air that gives it breath. It is all one. And in that oneness, there is no lack, no want, no problem to be solved. There is only this breath, this sound, this peace. Let it carry you now, all the way home. Chapter 7. The Glass Veil. What if your greatest sorrow was not yours to carry? Close your eyes for a moment and just listen to the silence that cradles this room. It's in that silence that we can sometimes hear it most clearly, the low, steady hum of a private ache, a disappointment that didn't quite fade with the day, a worry that has taken up residence in a corner of your heart, making a home for itself there. We treat these sorrows as our most personal possessions, don't we? We polish them with our attention. We turn them over and over in the dark. We believe they are the unique proof of our own existence. What if that were the most beautiful and tragic misunderstanding of all? What if the weight you feel on your chest tonight is not yours alone? What if it is not even personal? Imagine, if you will, a vast and endless workshop. It is not lit by electric light, but by a single eternal flame that casts long dancing shadows. And in this workshop, there is a single sublime artisan. This artisan is not a man, not a god as we might picture one, but a blind, driving, insatiable force, a will, a want without end. And this artisan has only one desire: to see itself, to know itself, to feel itself exist. But it is trapped in absolute darkness. It is pure hunger with no food, pure thirst with no water. So what does it do? It begins to craft. From the very stuff of its own wanting, it fashions lenses. It blows glass into beautiful, intricate, and heartbreaking forms. It creates us. You are one of these lenses. I am another. Every creature that has ever drawn breath, every leaf that has reached for the sun, every stone that has felt the pressure of the earth. We are all individual lenses crafted by this one desperate artisan. Our bodies, our minds, our beating hearts. These are just the intricate glass and silver of the apparatus. And through each of us, the artisan looks out. It peers through your eyes, and it sees a world of other people, of tasks, of loves and losses. It peers through the eyes of the fox in the snow, and it sees hunger and scent and fear. It looks through the ancient patient tree, and it feels only the slow, deep pull of gravity and light. This is the glass veil. You are not the one looking. You are the window through which something much, much older is looking. The ache you feel, that is the pressure of its gaze. The longing you carry, that is its endless, insatiable hunger, filtered through the unique curvature of your lens. Your personal sorrow, the one that feels so intimately, exquisitely yours, is simply the particular way the light bends as it passes through you. It is the specific flaw in your glass, the unique ripple that makes the view so painful, so beautiful, so singularly yours to experience. Think of the deepest heartbreak you've ever known, the one that carved a canyon through your life. We hold on to these events as the very definition of our story. I was hurt, I was betrayed, I loved, and I lost. But step back, just for a moment, into the quiet of this thought. The capacity to love, that overwhelming urge to merge with another soul. Whose urge is that? It is the will's. The searing pain of rejection, the animal panic of abandonment. Whose fear is that? It is the will's, terrified of being alone in the dark, desperate to perpetuate itself. You were merely the place where this ancient universal drama decided to play out its scene. The stage was your life, the actors were your heart. But the play is as old as time. This is not to diminish your pain, not at all. It is to free you from it, to take the crushing personal responsibility of it away. You did not create this wanting. You did not invent the rules of this game. You arrived, and the game was already in progress, and the rules were already set. The will to live, to strive, to want, to procreate, to achieve. It moves through you like a current through water. You are not the current. You are the water, and you are shaped by its flow. Your sorrow is not a flaw in your character. It is a flaw in the very nature of existence. It is the signature of the artisan on the glass. So tonight, as you feel that familiar weight, that old sadness breathing beside you in the dark, try something. Just try it on, like a softer, lighter thought. Don't push the feeling away. Don't cling to it either. Simply acknowledge it. Hello, old friend. I feel you there. But you are not mine. You are ours. You are the price of being a lens. You are the echo of a want that began long before I did and will continue long after. And in that acknowledgement, something extraordinary can happen. The personal sting of it lessens. The tight knot of my pain, my problem begins to loosen. It becomes a shared burden, a universal sigh. It becomes, in a strange way, less about you and more about everything. It transforms your private ache into a note in a vast cosmic symphony of yearning. And there is an odd, profound comfort in that. You are not alone in your loneliness. You are not unique in your suffering. You are participating in the deepest, most fundamental rhythm of the world itself. The veil is glass, and it is fragile, and it distorts everything we see. But tonight, just for now, you can remember that you are not the distortion. You are the beautiful, fragile instrument through which the universe is trying, desperately and wonderfully, to see itself. And in seeing that, perhaps we can begin to ask a new question. If we are not the wanting itself, but merely its home, what happens when we stop feeding it? When we stop tending to the garden of our endless desires? What strange, quiet peace might we find in simply letting it all wither? Chapter 8. The Unwatered Garden, the Strange Peace in Letting Your Desires Wither. We spend our lives in a beautiful, exhausting panic. We are gardeners of our own wanting. We rise each day and we tend to the soil. We water the seeds of our ambitions. We worry over the fragile shoots of our relationships. We anxiously await the bloom of our achievements. We prune the weeds of distraction. We fret over the weather of circumstance. This garden is our life's work. We believe that if we can just make it flourish, if we can get that rose of success to open, if we can get that vine of love to bear fruit, then, and only then, will we be allowed to rest. Then we will be happy. Then we will have peace. But have you ever noticed? The garden is never quite finished. The rose blooms, and its petals fall. The fruit is tasted, and the hunger returns. For every weed we pull, 2 more seem to sprout overnight. The moment one desire is satisfied, the soil is already ready for a new seed to be planted. We are perpetual gardeners in a plot of land that can never truly be tamed, because the very ground is made of want. What if the answer to peace is not better gardening? What if it is to simply put down the watering can, to step back from the soil, to let the relentless sun of striving beat down upon the unwatered earth, and to watch, without judgment, as the things we were so desperate to grow simply wither away? This is not quitting. This is not despair. It is the most profound and courageous act of reclamation imaginable. It is the denial of the will to live within yourself. Schopenhauer called it the turning of the will against itself. Imagine the energy of all your wanting, that constant, thrumming engine of pursuit that lives in your chest. Now imagine gently, quietly, refusing to fuel it, not fighting it, not battling it, just no longer participating. You see the desire for a promotion arise. You acknowledge its presence. You feel its familiar pull, and then you simply watch it. You don't rush to water it with frantic work or anxious strategy. You let it sit in the sun of your awareness. You see the desire to be right in an argument. You feel the heat of it on your skin, and you choose not to act. You let that particular plant wither from inattention. This creates the most extraordinary space within you. A silence where there was once a constant noise of need. It is in this silence that you discover you are not the gardener at all. You are the vast, open sky that has been watching the gardener toil all along. Your true nature is not the wanting, but the awareness of the wanting. The garden, with all its beautiful, tragic, demanding plants, is just a phenomenon happening within you. It is not you. When you stop identifying with the desires, you are left with the pure, quiet witness, the one who sees it all without needing anything to be different. Think of a want you have right now. Something simple, perhaps a want for a cool drink of water, or for this sentence to end, or for the comfort of the pillow to feel just right. Notice it. Feel the subtle tension it creates in the body. A slight leaning into the future, a small rejection of the present moment as it is. Now imagine gently letting that tension go, not satisfying the want, but releasing the charge of the want. It's like unclenching a muscle in your mind you didn't even know was tight. The want might still be there, but it has lost its power over you. It is a ghost of a plant, a whisper of a leaf. It cannot command you anymore. This is the ascetic's path, but it is not about hair shirts and cold monasteries. It is an inner movement. It is the sacred art of subtraction. It is saying no to the endless, exhausting game of fulfillment. Because you finally see the secret, the game is rigged. Satisfaction is a mirage that moves backward as we approach it. The pleasure is not in the having, but in the pursuit. And the moment we have, a new pursuit must immediately begin, or the terrible anxiety of emptiness sets in. So we remain forever chasing, forever gardening, forever thirsty. But when you let the garden wither, you are not left with a barren wasteland. That is the fear the will conjures to keep you enslaved. You are left with the ground, the pure, unadorned, miraculous ground of being itself. You are left with the raw experience of this breath, entering and leaving your body. You are left with the sensation of the blanket's weight, the sound of the distant world, the play of shadow on the wall. You are left with a peace so deep and so quiet that it was previously drowned out by the shouting of your desires. This peace does not thrill and excite like the bloom of a new want. It does not dance and sing. It settles. It holds. It is a profound, unshakable stillness. It is the end of the war with what is. It is the understanding that you were always complete. You were always whole. The garden of want was planted on top of this wholeness, obscuring it, making you feel you were lacking. Letting the garden go is simply revealing the native, undisturbed peace that was there all along. You are not achieving a new state. You are returning to your original state. Before the world told you what to want, before you learned to strive, you are coming home. And in that homecoming, a new sense begins to awaken, a way of hearing the world that has nothing to do with the ears, a way of perceiving that exists on the other side of wanting. Chapter 9. The Silent Bell. Learning to hear the world after the wanting has stopped. In the heart of the oldest temple in the world, there hangs a bell. It is not made of bronze or iron, but of space and silence. For centuries it has never been struck. It exists only to remind us of a sound that lies beneath all others, a frequency so subtle, so quiet, that it is usually drowned out by the relentless noise of our own wanting. The clatter of our plans, the jangle of our anxieties, the constant internal monologue of like and dislike, pursuit and avoidance. This is the cacophony of the will. It is so loud within us that it becomes the filter through which we experience everything. We do not hear the world. We hear our reaction to the world. But what happens when the wanting begins to quiet? When you have put down the watering can and stepped back from the unwatered garden, a space opens up. And in that space, a new kind of perception is born. It is not something you do. It is something you allow. It is the art of hearing the bell that has never been struck. This is the heart of aesthetic contemplation for Schopenhauer. The temporary, glorious release from the tyranny of the will. When you are lost in a piece of music or utterly absorbed in the beauty of a painting or standing breathless before a mountain range, something miraculous occurs. For a moment, the constant nagging voice of me falls silent. The mind, which is usually a tool of the will, calculating, scheming, desiring, is wrested from its service. It becomes a pure, will-less, timeless mirror of the world. In that moment, you are no longer a person with a name and a history and a list of problems. You are pure, knowing subject. And the object of your gaze, the painting, the sonata, the sunset, is no longer a thing to be used. It is not a potential meal or a source of danger or a status symbol. It is a pure, beautiful object. You and the object become the only two things in the universe, the subject and the object, locked in a wordless, wantless embrace. The noise stops, and in that profound silence you hear it. You hear the essence of the thing itself, the Platonic idea of it. You are no longer seeing a particular struggling tree, but are perceiving the eternal essence of treeness. You are not hearing a specific violin playing a specific note, but are hearing the very soul of music itself. You transcend the particular and touch the universal. You step out of the stream of time and desire, and for a breathtaking moment, you rest in the eternal. This is not an intellectual understanding. It is a feeling, a resonance. It is the silent bell finally being heard. It is the sound of reality when the filter of your personal wants is removed. The world does not become dull or gray. It becomes unimaginably more vivid, more real, more itself. The green of the leaf is not just a color you like. It is a profound, mysterious statement of existence. The sound of the wind is not just a noise. It is the breath of the planet. Everything is stripped of its utility and revealed in its sublime, innocent isness. This is the glimpse of the world as it truly is, independent of our demands upon it. It is a state of grace. And while the deep, sustained denial of the will is the path of the saint, these momentary respites through art and beauty are available to all of us. They are tiny, beautiful rehearsals for a more permanent peace. They are proof that there is another way to be. So tonight, as you drift towards sleep, you can practice this. You don't need a masterpiece in a museum. You have the sensation of your own breath. Become the pure subject of that breath. Let it be the most fascinating phenomenon in the universe. You have the sound of the silence in this room. Listen to it not as an absence of sound, but as a presence, as a thing in itself. Feel the weight of your body on the bed, not as a burden, but as a perfect expression of gravity and rest. Perceive it without wanting it to be different. In these tiny moments, you are striking that silent bell. You are quieting the want and hearing the world as it is. You are tasting a peace that does not depend on anything happening tomorrow, a peace that is already here, already now, waiting patiently beneath the noise for you to stop and to listen. It is the sound of your own deepest self before the world told you what to want. It is the most familiar sound in the world, and you are just now remembering how to hear it. Let that sound be the current that carries you now, deeper, further into a rest, not just of the body, but of the very will that moves it. A rest as deep and as silent as the ocean floor, where the waves of wanting finally come to rest. Chapter 10. The Clockmaker's Dream. What if your life is a ticking secret you were never meant to solve? What if the very thing you believe to be yourself, this collection of wants, fears, and loves that feels so intimately, undeniably you, is not the author of your story at all? What if it is merely a character, reading lines from a script it did not write, believing with all its heart that its improvisations are its own? Tonight let us wander into the quietest workshop of all, the one where the clockmaker sits, not with tools of brass and gear, but with something far more profound. And let me ask you a question that might just change the weight of every single breath you take from this moment forward. What if you are not the dreamer, but the dream? Imagine, if you will, a master clockmaker in a silent, lamplit room. His hands, worn and knowing, assemble a device of breathtaking complexity. He fits each gear, each spring, each finely balanced wheel into its place. He winds the mainspring, a coil of potential energy, and sets the pendulum in motion. Tick, tock, tick, tock. The sound is born into the stillness. The clock is now a world unto itself. Its gears turn in perfect, unthinking relation to one another. The hour hand believes it moves of its own volition, chasing the minute hand across the face of its existence. It does not know the hand that wound it. It does not feel the intent behind its own motion. It simply is, and in its being, it performs its function. It tells the time it was designed to tell. This, Arthur Schopenhauer would whisper, is not a metaphor for the universe. It is the hidden mechanics of your very soul. The clockmaker is what he called the will, a blind, aimless, ceaseless striving force that is the fundamental essence of everything. It is the energy in the seed that pushes it toward the sun, the pull in the river that drags it toward the sea, the ache in your heart that seeks something, anything to fill its hollows. And you, my dear listener, you are the clock, your body, your mind, your racing thoughts and tender hopes. They are the beautiful, intricate casing, the ticking you hear in your chest, the rhythm of your desires for love, for success, for comfort, for meaning. That is the sound of the mainspring unwinding, driving the machinery forward. You experience your life from the perspective of the hour hand, believing you are choosing your path, when in truth, you are following a course set by a force you cannot see, for a purpose you cannot possibly know. Feel that for a moment, not as a cold philosophy, but as a sensation. The next time a want arises in you, for a glass of water, for the sound of a specific voice, for the peace of a resolved worry, do not simply act on it. Lie still in the dark and feel it. Feel it as a pressure, a tension, a kind of psychic gravity pulling you in a direction. That is the will acting through you. Schopenhauer saw this will as a monstrous, hungry thing, a thing that could never be satisfied because its nature is to want. To satisfy one desire is only to clear the stage for the next to enter. We move from need to need, from want to want, like a ship moving from wave to wave, believing the next crest will be the one that finally lets us sail on calm waters, never realizing we are not on a ship at all, but in the ocean itself. We are the wanting, And this is the secret the clock was never meant to discover. Its purpose is to tell time, not to question the clockmaker. Our purpose, it seems, is to want, not to question the wanting. But here is where the dream becomes truly fascinating. For the clock, in one rare and miraculous moment, can become aware of its own ticking. Schopenhauer called this awareness the world as representation. This is the world not as blind force, but as picture. It is the world of your senses, the moonlight on the floor, the texture of the blanket, the sound of this voice. It is the world of science and reason, the world we can measure and describe. It is the face of the clock. And for most of our lives, we are lost in this picture, chasing the images across its surface, believing them to be real. We believe the want for a bigger house is a tangible goal, not just a new configuration of the same old gears. We believe the pain of a heartbreak is a unique and personal catastrophe, not another manifestation of the will's frustration. We are like an audience so captivated by the shadows on the cave wall that we forget they are shadows, cast by a fire we have turned our backs on. The sorrow you carry, the anxiety that knots your shoulders, the restless ambition that never lets you rest. What if it is not truly yours? What if it is the clockmaker's dream, and you are simply the vessel in which it is being dreamed? This is not to make your pain less real, but to change your relationship to it, to see it not as a flaw in your character, but as weather in the system of you. You can feel the rain without believing you are the storm. So what is to be done? If we are clocks dreaming we are clockmakers, is there any escape from the endless ticking progression of want and lack? Schopenhauer, this profound pessimist, actually offered a way out. But it is not a way out that involves winning. It does not involve getting everything you ever wanted. That would only wind the spring tighter. The escape he offered is the one we are practicing right now in this quiet space. It is the escape into seeing, into stepping back from the picture and, for a fleeting moment, perceiving the frame. It is the ability, in the midst of a desire, to pause and say, "Ah, there it is again, the wanting." This act of observation creates a tiny, crucial sliver of space between you and the will. In that space, there is a breath, and in that breath, there is a profound and world-altering freedom. You are no longer just the clock. You are also the silent, dark room in which the clock ticks. And the room is always, always still. And so the first clock fades into the silence from which it came. Its ticking softens until it is no more than a memory of a rhythm in the blood. But in the space it leaves behind, a new question begins to form, not in the mind, but in the heart. If we are not the authors of our wants, then what are we? What remains when the endless chase finally, mercifully, stills? What world appears when we cease to look at the picture and instead begin to feel the canvas upon which it is painted? Chapter 11. The Great Unseeing. The day the world stopped being a picture and became a quiet breath. There is a moment, if you are very still and very lucky, when the world stops explaining itself. When the name you have for a thing, tree, star, pain, joy, falls away, and all that is left is the silent, shimmering isness of it. It is the moment you stop looking at the moon and instead feel yourself being looked back by the night. This is not a loss of vision, but a gain of a sight so deep, it has no need for eyes. Schopenhauer called the world of names and objects the world as representation, a grand and convincing painting. But he also spoke of a way to see the painter's hand, not in the brush strokes, but in the stillness of the paint itself. Tonight, let us practice the great unseeing. Let us unfocus our mind's eyes and allow the world to soften at its edges until you are no longer a person in the world, but a moment of the world, breathing. Think of the last time you were truly captivated by a piece of music, not just listening to it, but dissolved into it. In the beginning, you might have noted the instruments. Ah, that's a cello. There's the piano. You were naming the parts, analyzing the representation. But if the music was beautiful enough, if you let yourself go, a shift occurred. The labels dissolved. You no longer heard a cello. You heard aching sorrow. You no longer heard a piano. You felt crystalline hope. The melody ceased to be a sequence of notes and became a river that carried you away. You and the music were not two separate things. You were one event. This, for Schopenhauer, was the highest purpose of art. It was a temporary rescue from the tyranny of the will. When you are lost in a symphony, you are not wanting, you are being. The desperate, striving individual, the person worried about tomorrow, regretful of yesterday, is quieted. For a few precious minutes, you are free from the clockwork. You are pure, will-less subject, contemplating the very essence of things, not their utility to you. That tree is no longer lumber or shade, it is tree-ness. That mountain is no longer a challenge to be climbed or a view to be photographed, it is mountain-ness. In these moments, you are not reading the book of the world, you are tasting the paper and the ink. Now, bring that feeling closer, into this room, into you. Your breath, right now. You can feel it as a concept. I am breathing in, I am breathing out. That is the world of representation. But can you feel it without the words? Can you feel the coolness at the tip of your nose as a pure sensation, without the label cool or nose? Can you feel the weight of your body on the bed, not as my body and the bed, but as a single gentle pressure, a sinking into support? This is the practice of unseeing. It is the gentle dismissal of the mind's constant chatter, its desperate need to categorize and control everything through language. It is allowing the world to be unknown again, mysterious, whole. Schopenhauer believed that in these moments we pierce the veil of Maya, the illusion of separateness. We see that the same fundamental will that strives in me strives in you. The same force that pushes the sap up the tree pushes the blood through my veins. We are not separate clocks ticking in isolation. We are all different manifestations of the same deep, dark ocean. Your sorrow and the rain, falling somewhere on the other side of the world, are made of the same stuff. The stuff of the world, striving and feeling. This is why compassion is not just a moral duty for Schopenhauer. It is a metaphysical truth. When you see another person suffering, and you feel a pang of empathy, that is not just you being a good person. That is a glimpse of the truth breaking through. It is you, on a level deeper than reason, recognizing the same will in them that you feel in yourself. You are seeing your own struggling essence in the face of a stranger. Their hunger is your hunger. Their loneliness is your loneliness. Because at the level of the will, there is no yours and mine. There is only the one, vast, suffering energy expressing itself in billions of forms. The great unseeing, then, is the dissolution of the barrier between self and other. It is the realization that the peace you seek will never be found by fortifying your own little clock tower, but by realizing You were never in a tower to begin with. You are the sky, in which all the towers exist. So how do we live this? We do not need to become ascetics on a mountaintop. We can practice it in the quiet moments. Washing a dish, feel the warmth of the water, not as water, but as sensation. Truly feel it. Look at a loved one's face. Try for just a second to see them without the history, without the expectations, without the name. See the miracle of their presence, the sheer unlikelihood of their existence, the same light of consciousness looking out from behind their eyes, that looks out from behind your own. In these moments, the world ceases to be a problem to be solved. It becomes a mystery to be embraced. The wanting quietens, the ticking fades, and what is left is a profound, wordless peace. It is the peace of the canvas upon which the dramatic and beautiful picture of life is painted. The picture may be of joy or tragedy, but the canvas itself remains untouched, unchanged, and eternally silently present. You are that canvas, and you have been all along. And from that boundless, quiet peace, a final, gentle curiosity emerges. If we are the canvas and not the painting, if we are the sky and not the weather, how then do we move through a world of weight and want? How do we, who are ultimately weightless, navigate the gravity of a striving world? The answer is not what you might think. It is not a struggle, but a surrender. It is the discovery of the most paradoxical anchor of all,